Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 121. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week and you stream twice a week. How? Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop showed off a new model. They got rid of a whole heck of a lot of models, and I tried way too hard on a model this week. But first, let's get the nice things out of the way first. Let's look at the brand new models. Some new models for Cities of Sigmar, some Cannoneers, and they are a little bit busy. And a lot of these new models, I've been hearing a little bit of salt, a little bit of not liking these miniatures so much. I like them. I think that they look good. I'd be interested to try to paint them because I think the way Games Workshop painted them looks very nice, but it does accentuate how busy the models are. And that is the chief critique that I've been hearing about these guys. And I've also heard something that actually did touch me a little bit on why these guys don't feel a little bit lame. And it's because the Stormcast Eternals exist. Like in the battle against evil and the darkness that's trying to take over the world of Age of Sigmar, the Stormcast Eternals are really carrying the majority of the load in fighting against the forces of Nagash. Like they're space marines, they're super godly, powerful, golden beings that are immortal and can be resurrected. And so it does feel like, you know, as tough and cool and interesting as these normal dudes are, how much are they helping? Like how much are these guys getting the job done, keeping humanity around as opposed to the Stormcast Eternals, which almost aren't even humanity? And I do like the Stormcast Eternals a lot. Like, in some ways, I like them more than the Space Marines. I think their lore is really interesting and solid. And the novels I've read about the Stormcasts, they definitely have a little bit more of like, they're people. They're just regular people who have been turned into Stormcast Eternals as opposed to the Space Marines who are like indoctrinated from birth to be super soldiers. Although when you read the Space Marine novels, you still get these situations where like the Space Marines have their own thoughts and opinions on things and they don't feel like are essentially manufactured product Space Marines. They just feel like folks who happen to be Space Marines, particularly when you get like crazy outliers like Grimaldus, you know, because I'm a Black Temple player, who are are very, very different than your average Space Marine. But the normal Cities of Sigmar, like you want them to be the plucky humanity who is just fighting against impossible odds. And that is what they are. But having the Stormcast around does make it seem like they're not as important. It's kind of a little bit with the Space Marines, how you have Space Marines, and then you also have Grey Knights, and then you also have Death Watch, and then you also have Custodes. Like when you separate them into more things, and more things are arguably more fun because it gives you more ways to play the game, it does kind of separate things in the lore. It makes things a little bit more complicated and like, well, if the Space Marines don't take care of this problem, maybe the Grey Knights, the Death Watch, or the Custodes will take care of it. Or maybe a Primarch will return and fix all of our problems. It does become this weird, convoluted mess of lore and storytelling as opposed to the perfect simplicity. Because in 40K, really, the Guard is doing almost everything. Like there's, I forget how many, there's like 1,000 chapters of Space Marines, so 100,000 Marines, like 1 Marine per planet, and yet I'll lose 50 Marines in a single game against Sean. But it doesn't quite, I totally understand it not perfectly gelling for some people, because when I really think about it, which you never really should do with fiction, it all starts to fall apart just a little bit. But these models, I like these models a lot. I would love to see, I don't know if I want to start a Cities of Sigmar army, and if I did, it would probably be the dwarves, because the old dwarves look really funny to me, and I think they're kind of dope. But I would love the opportunity to take these guys and see what I could do with them, because I bet that you could do some pretty simple painting steps to simply paint these guys up and have them look pretty dang like rough and ready. Like they're not perfect soldiers. They don't have the best possible equipment, even though they look like they have the best possible equipment, especially with like the Baroque embroidery all over their weapons and armor. But I bet there's a way to kind of scruff them up a little bit, make them look like some farmers who were pulled off the fields and are now taking the fight to the enemy. these guys are fun. I like their giant cannons on poles with spikes. I like their shields with the little feet on them to help keep them up off the ground. I like the little squire who's carrying all of their gear and loot, and who lets them have better shooting once per game. But man, like, these models are beautiful and they're very gorgeous, and I think they would look really, really good massed up together. They're really giving me some Song of Ice and Fire vibes, which my friends are trying to get me into, and I just found out that there's woolly mammoths in the game. It might happen. But if I play that, then there's almost no point to getting these guys because it's like the same thing. And as much as I love collecting every possible thing under the sun, I don't need things that are like directly analogous to one another. Ooh. And it looks like there's like the muskety cannon, there's the triple shot cannon, but then there's the pistol, the akimbo pistol cannons. And that just seems awesome. Like one guy, just 5 guys just doing this. You know what? They might have won me over. Ooh, or if these guys were pirates. Like if I could pirate them up a little bit. Like, yeah, they fight the forces of chaos because it's a necessity, otherwise everything falls apart. But they, they'll also do a little pillaging and plundering. There could definitely be some fun to that. Some scoundrels. If there was something a little bit more scoundrelly, something a little bit more Han Solo about these guys, I think they would definitely appeal to me just a little bit more. But as they are, I really like these miniatures. I think they look like a lot of fun. They really have stacked a lot of stuff on those little bases. But they're awesome. Man, can you imagine? Because they look super cool, ranked up, ready to rock and roll. But imagine these guys getting into position, just carrying all this gear. It's like when you're taking in the groceries from the car and you don't want to make a lot of trips, and all of a sudden you're just completely loaded down with everything, and then you get to the door and you can't open it, and then everything just has to go on the floor. Good old Cities of Sigmar. Especially the horsies. I really, really liked the horses. Those guys were dope. Age of Sigmar is so cool. It's such a fun looking, like, is it a high fantasy universe? It's a high fantasy universe. There's more goblins per square inch than I think any other fictional universe. It's awesome. But yeah, the new canon guys for the Cities of Sigmar, they're looking like a lot of fun. And I need things that are a lot of fun because Games Workshop took away my fun, or is in the process of taking away my fun. Last week, I talked a little bit about how the new Horus Heresy Legions Imperialis, the new imagining of Epic, is maybe not my cup of tea. 30K looks super cool. I'm interested in starting a Wordbearer's army, but it's just a 9-year period of a war where we know everything. Like, there's 50 novels documenting everything that happened during this conflict of Space Marines versus Space Marines. But like in the world of Warhammer 40K, anything is possible. And you got cool things like the Necrons and the Tyranids. And they've taken them out of the game. A little bit, little tear out of the corner of my eye. Pour one out for the Xenos from Epic Armageddon. But Games Workshop seems to be, well, they don't seem to be, they are pulling all of the 40K stuff from Aeronautica Imperialis. I don't know if Aeronautica Imperialis is anybody's favorite game, but it is kind of sad to see it dying so soon. It's not a very old game at all. I bought the starter set, and I have yet to play a game, but one of my favorite, actually my favorite miniature game of all time was X-Wing First Edition. Beautiful game. Play it every now and again to this day. I had basically every ship in the game. It was awesome. And I was hoping Aeronautica could bring back just a little bit of that, and with the added fun of it being set in the world of Warhammer 40K with cool things like Orc Bombers and Eldar Hemlock Fighters. Or that might be the Dark Eldar. What do the Eldar call their spaceships? Red, because that's the normal color of the craft worlds. But yeah, all of the Xeno stuff is now last chance to buy, and some of the Imperial Guard stuff that only exists in the 40K, like the Valkyries, are last chance to buy. And it just feels like Aeronautica is becoming a dead game. There's sort of two versions of Aeronautica. There's Aeronautica 30K and there's Aeronautica 40K, I guess. And it seems like the 40K one is kind of going the way of the dodo. But isn't the 40k one the cool one? Like, I don't get it. 40k is the most popular war game by a mile. It's super cool. Everybody loves it. It's amazing. Tons of video games. Like, it's the thing that people know. Like, I watch so much YouTube, and every now and then somebody who I'm watching who's nothing to do with Warhammer at all will mention a little bit of Warhammer. It's like, it's getting out there. People know what this thing is. And just taking it all back to 30k where it's just Space Marines and half of them are painted black. I don't know, it doesn't excite me in the same way that 40k does. Like, I was really hoping for Aeronautica that the Tyranids would make an appearance. How cool would it be to have these big fleshy boogers flying around with these jet fighters? Like, that would have been so cool. And it would appear that it's maybe not gonna happen now. And that is very sad. I don't know if I'm gonna go on an Aeronautica binge to try to kind of complete my set before everything is gone forever. I do have kind of a lot of dead games, and there is some absolute magic in dead games. Like, when I collect a war game, my goal is is like half to play the game. I really like building and modeling, but also there's a huge collector aspect, and I do like just having everything you need. Like, you know, I have this set, I can wrap it all up in a nice bow. I've got the books, I've got the factions, I've got the terrain. And if I ever get the chance to play this, I'm gonna be playing it properly. I'm gonna be playing it the way it was meant to be played. And I have that with 30k. I do have enough miniatures to do that with the ancient Starship Troopers game from Mongoose Publishing back in 2007. Like, I've got the stuff. And I don't know if Aeronautica is gonna make that list, but I did want to paint up some tiny little planes. And I still could, but they'd be Horus Heresy. And as much fun as Horsey Heresy is, like, there's not gonna be giant boogers. There could be Orcs and Eldar. They would probably be more along the lines of the Krork, because, or no, they wouldn't be the Krork, because the Krork were defeated in the War in Heaven. And then they had essentially devolved or had not made it all the way through their orky biology evolution since the Eldar kind of culled them after the Necrons went to sleep. But that is 40k history. Like, there are some things that could show up randomly in the Horus Heresy Legion Imperialis or Horus Heresy Aeronautica Imperialis, but in my opinion, there's just not enough. Just let it be 40k. Let it be epic. Epic looks so, for lack of a better word, epic. Land trains for the squats. Like, there's so much weirdness. The Tyranid Norn Queen. Like, what does that actually look like? You know, is it like Starship Troopers, like a bug the size of a planet? Like, there's so many interesting things. And I don't know, Horus Heresy must be doing pretty good because Games Workshop is really going for it with Horus Heresy, but I don't know. It's kind of taking the wind out of my sails, which is not the perfect analogy because this game is about planes and that phrase is about boats, but I am a little bit disappointed. One thing though that I am very not disappointed in is this miniature I painted this week, and it is a Black Templar Space Marine Apothecary. And I tried way too hard on this miniature. I absolutely love him. I'm slowly but surely working my way through my Black Templar army. I am trying to make every single miniature perfect. Like, I have other armies like my Necrons and my Tyranids who I am very happy with the color schemes, but they are a color scheme that kind of lets me get things done. The Black Templar do not let me get things done. Like, I just have to throw mountains of time and effort into each one, but I really like how they look. It's kind of like that quote from the Ed Wood movie. This is the one I'll be remembered for. My Black Templar army. Like, it's gonna be glorious. But an Apothecary is just a little 55-point upgrade to a squad of Space Marines that does have some pretty darn good benefits. One of them is amazing, one of them is a little situational. Every single turn, he can bring a guy back from the dead. Love it. A+ ability. For 55 points, I think that's pretty solid. And the second ability he has is if the squad he's attached to gets wiped out, I get a command point. Okay, that's not bad. Getting a command point is a pretty huge bonus. Losing a whole squad of my guys definitely is an annoying tax to get that command point. Obviously, I would never try to get my guys killed, but it's just kind of a bonus for when it happens. It's an interesting trigger. Also, if anybody, I've been reading and reading and reading the rules and the indexes for 10th edition. I cannot wrap my head around this, but in the rule book, it says you cannot gain more than 1 extra command point in your turn. And it seems like a hard cap. So it seems like you can get 2. You get 1 automatically and you can get 1 from one other source, like this apothecary. But there are many ways to get more than 1 command point per turn. And so I've heard it argued that nope, you can get your point, your free point, and then you can gain another point through, some model function, and that can get you 2 command points a turn. And I've heard other arguments that like index rules supersede any other rule from the codex. And so, because there's so many ways, like squats can get like, or the Leagues of Votan can get like 3 command points in a phase. Like there's the Imperial Guard can just generate command points like nobody's business. Like I don't understand which rule is real. Is it the index rules or is it the rulebook rules? Typically, codexes do take precedence over core book rules, but it just feels weird to have this very specific rule giving you a hard cap, but then so many rules that seem to break that hard cap. So if anybody knows a little bit more than me, please leave it in the comments below, because I would love to know more. I would love to know if I can cheat and get more command points than Sean. I don't know if that's possible with any of my armies. I have Necron, Space Marines, and Tyranids. Tyranids can definitely get some command points, some good command points going. Space Marines and Necrons don't seem to have tons of ways of getting them. But this apothecary probably took me about 10 hours. It took a long time. I really went for it with the painting, and he is in appropriate Black Templar color schemes. The only thing that is slightly incorrect, and incorrect is not ever really the appropriate word for paint schemes because you can always make anything up, and everything exists in the lore. Like my guys, the only thing that's slightly wrong with this guy is his shoulder pads. If I was following the Codex lore, not the Codex Astartes, but the Black Templar Codex, then his shoulder pads would have a black trim. My guys all have red trim because they have been crusading against Nyx orcs for the last few hundred years. And so because this fighting has been so violent and bloody, they all wear red on their shoulder trims, all of them across the entire Black Templar crusade. So that's the only thing. But other than that, like Black Templar wear just normal black armor and then a white helmet, as opposed to like Ultramarines or Codex compliant chapters who wear all white armor, which does look lovely. Like I think it looks really good and it adds like a nice pop of brightness to a squad. Although isn't it really silly to like, because there's no rules of engagement or laws governing the Warhammer world. Like the orcs are gonna pick out the guy wearing the bright white armor in the middle of a battlefield, or trying to sneak unseen in the dark and you're wearing glowing white armor. It's just a little bit silly, but I love it. This guy was super fun. I tried a bunch of things on him, and I do want more apothecaries for my army because I do want to see, like, is resurrecting a model, if I kind of go hard into it, how good can it be? Because this can attach to squads that already are attached to another leader type unit. I was thinking a 20-man blob of Crusaders with either Grimaldus or Helbrecht, and then this guy attached to that. Like, he can potentially generate, I guess up to 6 models throughout the course of the game. They'll probably die a little bit faster than 1 per turn, but that could definitely help a little bit. So I really want to see exactly how good the apothecary is, because I've never been good at actually like synergizing my armies well. I tend to just grab things off the shelf that look cool and then just play it on the tabletop, and nothing is really working together. So I'm working on my armies right now to try to get them like perfect so that they can really, really do some work on the tabletop. And I think apothecaries are going to be a little bit of a part of that for my Black Templar army. Also, in Black Templar news, they finally have fixed the little error in the Black Templar rules where you could take an 11th Sword Brethren for Sword Brethren squads. So pour one out for the now missing 11th Sword Brethren. He was fun while he lasted. I never had a model for him because I only own 10. But you proxy another guy in there and it works fine. I always wonder how oversights like that happen, because like, was the person who wrote the Black Templar Index not a Black Templar person, or did not have access to the old Black Templar Codex? Like, it just seems kind of wild. I think what happened is that they took the Castellan that comes in the Like the leader of a Sword Brethren squad is technically a Castellan, but not actually a Castellan. And so I think that's where the confusion came from, where someone must have thought it was a different miniature, but it is not. It's just a normal Sword Brethren. So good old Apothecary. One thing that I tried on this guy is I didn't want to give him red glowing lenses and a red light because there's just red and black on this model. Like it's a very specific palette, like a limited palette. And so I wanted to add in another color. And I actually think the neon green works really well. And I might try to incorporate a little bit of neon green into some of my other Black Templar units, especially anything that is kind of in a little bit more of a support oriented capacity. But very happy with this guy. I hope the next few don't take me 10 hours. It maybe wasn't quite that long, maybe closer to 9. Easy, absolutely easy, like a whole weekend, basically. Good old 40k 10th edition. I'm so excited to get playing it more. I still haven't beat Sean. In fact, I lost pretty bad both times, but it's coming. I'm gonna get good, I'm gonna beat Sean, and if I ever beat Sean, then I'm ready to rock and roll for tournaments. I think the only thing that has got me going even harder than my Black Templar army is our Patreon. Over there, we have a brand new STL terrain set every single month. This month, we have the Hive Colony, an entire battlefield's worth of gooey, goopy, Tyranid-looking organisms, perfect for complementing your Leviathan Tyranid models. We also make extra episodes of EonsOfBattle every single week, host live Discord hangouts, and we have a tier where you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines, and you can join the Immortal Crusade. You could be this Apothecary. We also stream 2 nights a week over on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Central Time. Come hang out and see me paint things like this Apothecary. And if you're interested in picking up one of our previous terrain sets, the Demonic Forest Terrain Scenery, you can do so from Beowulf Miniatures Etsy page, linked in the description below. It's been a fun week of Warhammering. I didn't get to do as much as I had hoped. I've been pretty busy on non-miniature things, which is pretty lame, but I think I'm gonna be getting back into it, and I think I'm gonna be getting back into it with a little bit of Necromunda, so stay tuned.